OpenText Summit. It's Aki Anastasiou here. And talking right now with me in the studio is none other than Miles Kubheka, author, entrepreneur. He's a South African extraordinaire. And when he finished his speech today, he got this most incredible standing ovation. How did that feel, Miles? That's amazing.
Yeah,
well,
thank you.
You absolutely deserved it, because I was watching the crowd and you had the crowd eating out of your hands. And it's kind of difficult to describe Miles Kubheka, because Miles Kubheka is so much more than food. I know you from Microsoft days when you were a systems engineer.
Yeah.
So how do you introduce Miles Kubheka to people? Who is Miles Kubheka?
Wow, that's actually a good question. I think above all else, I'm just a South African who's passionate about this country, and I think once you've traveled the world, you realize how fortunate we are in South Africa, despite our challenges. And what I've noticed is that there's two kinds of people. Ones who've traveled will always appreciate the country, but unintentionally they'll always compare our negative stuff with whatever country they're from is positive.
Yes.
They never compare our great with their great.
Yes.
And it's a very important distinction. You know, like if you say you were in the US and the public transport system is great, for example. In fact, I'll use Stockholm, Sweden. Amazing public transport, amazing efficiency, amazing everything, right? So the temptation when you compare it to ours, you go like, wow, that's impressive. But they're in the dark for 10 months of the year because, you know, it's a Scandinavian country, it's up there in the north. So it's dark. And I'd rather have us compared to our amazing sunshine that's,
100%.
you know, 12 months of the year.
And I bet you if we had to do a study, they're probably less happier than us. No insult to any of our Swedish viewers that are watching right now.
Yeah.
But in fact, even the the gentleman from OpenText opened today, the vice president, he's from Germany, and he even said that, you know, out of all of the countries that he covers, and he's got more than 100 countries, the one place he wants to come to.
It's true. It's amazing. And we take it for granted. And, you know, I used to hear people say, oh, South Africa, we've got amazing people. Or like, you know, I always thought that's like condescending when people say, oh, but it's true.
Oh, it's true.
It's genuinely true.
It's definitely true.
Yeah.
And you've really touched on so many different you know, aspects of South Africans. You know, I loved your story about Vuyo's Wors, and you know, he sold the story so well that I wish there was a Vuyo's Wors you know, outlet over here, so that I really felt like eating it. And that's so uniquely South African.
Yeah.
But that was in your early days. But I want to talk about Wakanda, and for me that was exciting. It left me feeling so inspired. Tell us about Wakanda.
So we run, Wakanda is a food and beverage accelerator.
Yes.
So we work with amazing food and beverage entrepreneurs, guys who are starting their journey.
Yes.
And we find they're often very talented, whether in the food, whether they're chefs or product dev guys or whatever. We find that there's a skill set there for sure. There's no two ways about it. What often is lacking is the business side, the business acumen, the way, how do you make this a sustainable business that goes global even, right?
Yes.
And that's the part we come in. I call it bulletproofing. So we take some of the lessons I learned when I was in my journey as a startup, and we give them essentially what I wish I had when I was starting out.
Yes.
Right? Like I really wish I had a rich uncle. That would have been nice. But other than that, I wish I had someone who could help me and guide me on how do I hire a team that can deliver on the product, or how do I find someone who will help me with operations?
Yes.
Because now once you start scaling and putting your product in a big retail, like, you know, there's a whole engine that has to be put in place.
Yeah.
So yeah, we bulletproof food and beverage businesses.
And you know, it struck me because we take so many things for granted. You mentioned that, you know, people earn X amount of money for doing a job, etc., but you can't always afford to buy bulk, which is ultimately the cheaper way to go in the long term. And you've established these stands, and I'm not going to get
Gcwalisas.
the Gcwalisas.
Yes.
And it was absolutely brilliant because people came, they could pay for what they afford, and they're still getting that value.
Yeah.
And then there were so many offspins of that. There was the solar and there were the lights that came out. And you had all of these little industries and this community coming together and just changing the entire community.
Yeah. And can I speak with the...
Yes, okay. You can go ahead.
Okay. It was a revelation for us too. I mean, we started during COVID
Yes.
when we realized that actually people in the townships are not poor; they're just poorly paid. So it's a cash flow issue more than anything. So when I realized that, I thought like it's insane that people are marginalized out of the food system based on the fact that they have money, but not what the pack size costs.
Yes.
So when you remove the pack size, it allows them to pay for food based on the amount of money.
Brilliant.
So we'll sell you a tea bag for 50 cents, an egg for $2, and yeah, so you pay for what the amount of money you've got.
It's almost like where the software industry is going, you know,
Yeah.
pay for a service,
Yes.
pay as a service.
Yes.
And how many Gwalisas are there?
So, as a systems engineer, my biggest thing about scaling is the realization that if you scale too fast, you scale the problems with.
Correct.
So we are very much intentional in what I call bug fixing. So we're spending a lot of time getting it on the point we want, as well as releasing the features on the version 1, because when we scale, and we're about to put 25 in just Alex alone.
That's
for example.
amazing.
Yeah. So, but you don't want to have 25 times the problem.
Exactly.
Right.
And you want it to work, and it must be streamlined and work well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, that's 25. That's a lot.
That's just in one township.
In one township
Yeah.
in Alex.
Yeah.
And you're going to have 25 of these Gwalisas. But I imagine that you must be flooded with requests from all over the country to do this.
We are, and we're blessed, and we really, really are blessed in that. But the secret sauce for us is that they're about the communities we work with.
Yes.
We work with the community-based organizations. So the mamas who've been feeding kids or the community,
Right.
and they've been doing it for years, and no one has been giving them any a pump or, but they just keep doing it, and you don't know why they keep doing it, because they don't make money from it,
Yeah.
but they're always feeding the kids in the community. So those are the first people we want to empower, because once they've got a Gcwalisa, now they've got an alternative revenue stream.
Correct.
And secondly, the community trusts them.
Yes.
So, it's a self-fulfilling like prophecy. So that's where our focal area is.
So is it almost like taking it as a franchise?
Well, in tech speak, we are like a platform.
A platform, okay.
Right. So, so we'll build the infrastructure, and then we will do the support services, like making sure the food is there and all of
Yes.
that, and training, which is the Wakanda side. So
Right.
we train the store owners or the community-based organizations to
That's
operate.
absolutely
Yeah.
brilliant. I mean, what's next? You left us so inspired, and I love the way that you see opportunity
Yeah.
wherever you go.
Yeah.
What's next?
Well, I mean, like one thing I forgot to mention, which is important, and it got triggered when the Accenture guys were talking about sustainability. Obviously, we use solar panels and so
Yes.
forth, and we don't use, because we don't use plastics or packaging,
Oh,
the impact we have on the environment is exponential.
yeah, because people bring a glass jar
or
and
an
you-
old PET bottle.
Yeah, and I saw those people filling up an
The
old Coke
Coke
bottle
bottles.
with
the
detergent,
soap.
you know,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is brilliant.
So that means, and because you don't ever think about it, that means in a community, my mom always says, like, just because you're poor doesn't mean you have to be dirty. And it turns out people aren't actually dirty, it's the circumstance. So when you buy a lot of small pack sizes, it means your predisposition to litter is much higher because you're buying a lot of small stuff.
Yeah.
And then you're probably living in an informal settlement which doesn't have guys coming up and picking up the garbage. So you end up littering on the floor. So with less people buying packs with packaging, that's less packaging that goes into the environment.
I'm going to ask you a really tough question.
Sure.
Because if I had to make you, Miles Kubheka, president of the country for one day, what's the one thing you change?
I would firstly say thank you, but no thanks. And a simple reason, because I think, like I said to you or to the audience, that I find charity, or even just generally, society has got a lot of dependency issues.
Yes.
People look up to somebody to
Right.
come and solve the problems. I'm of the opinion that a lot of people can actually solve their own problems.
Brilliant.
I believe in bottom-up solutions rather than me sitting in a podium and saying X and Y, and
Yeah.
I have no control in it.
Yeah.
I'd rather be on the ground with the community and just watch what they're doing, and then catalyzing the solutions with them.
Where does someone get some more information about the work that you guys are doing?
Our Wakanda website,
Yeah.
www.wakanda.org.za, and Gcwalisa is www.gcwalisa.com.
So does Gcwalisa fit in under the Wakanda umbrella, right? Because I'm sure there's lots of other little projects going on there.
Actually, we're working on 17 projects right now.
Wow.
Water is the next biggest problem statement, and people don't realize water is worse than electricity in terms of impact on everybody, right? And we've seen the cholera issue a couple of months back. Water, if you go to most African countries, I call them the bottled water economy, because you do everything using bottled water. You brush your teeth with bottled water, you cook with bottled water because you can't trust the water. But the two are interlinked. Electricity and water. When electricity is when it hits the cliff and falls off the cliff, the water problem becomes exponential that quickly.
Right.
So we're already looking on and working on those solutions around water, because we see it. It's probably five years away.
And the problem is growing exponentially over the years, as we've seen.
And it will affect everybody, because water, once it's contaminated, you drink it, then it's a health issue.
Yes.
Whereas electricity, sure, it sucks, but it's mostly an inconvenience. Whereas water is not. It's hardcore important.
Inspirational stuff, Miles. Always good to see you.
Thank you.
Miles Kubheka, just do a Google search. Check it out on YouTube as well, and you'll find out exactly what I'm talking about. And presenting here at the OpenText Summit and getting an incredibly well-deserved standing ovation. We'll be back with some more interviews in just a moment.